I would like to call this meeting of the Oregon Public Library Board to order on Wednesday, November 13th at 5:15 p.m. May I have a roll call, please?
Sure. Stata.
Here.
Nelson.
Here.
Goplin.
Here.
Reese.
Here.
Bergstrom.
Here.
Bonsonfield.
Here.
And Besham. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Is there a motion to adopt or amend the agenda?
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have an agenda. Any community input this evening? All right. Moving on to 5A, amend or approve minutes from our October board meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Let's move on to review and payment of available bills and accepting financial reports.
So the current month's bills are in the packet. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Just a reminder, we did pull out expenses. The second section is expenses paid with donated funds, so to recognize the amount of generosity that funds our programming and other special initiatives. Are there any questions on any of the bills in the list?
I would entertain a motion to review and pay bills and accept the financial reports.
I will make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Sure, John.
When you look at the balance sheet for the library fund, I'm sure there's a simple explanation. We still have $1 million short-term debt. I thought that had been retired, but.
So the short-term debt, let's pull that up. That's, I believe that was the loan that the village took for the USDA grant, and that has been taken care of, so they may not have updated it on the sheet, or I might be missing where they updated it, but they do have the assets due from other governments, and that may be the previous number that was to balance that out. I'll have to ask Lisa how she handled that part, because that was done without me, but we have paid off that debt a number of months ago, very early in the year actually, so that is closed out. It just may not be updated in the village accounting books, but that has been paid off.
Oh,
And we have received the full payment from the USDA as well, so there's no outstanding items on either piece of
good.
it.
Yeah, thank you. Grateful for that explanation.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alrighty, we're moving right along. To 6A, Library Director's Report.
So just a number of things I want to mention today. We did have a staff in service in October, which is always a great chance for our staff to get together and interact with somebody that might not regularly work with. And we had Laura come on behalf of the library board. We had Administrator Shanks come to talk about the referendum, so our staff had any questions that they had answered and were informed on that process, which was really helpful. And we also had Laura Dewey here, did a safety overview for us. There's a number of new systems in the new library that we wanted to make sure staff were comfortable and familiar with. And then we kind of did just a library overview that talked about some of our programming and some of our efforts towards our strategic plan, just to kind of recenter our staff on some of our library programming and services that we work towards every day. You may have seen, if you were driving on Janesville or CC or in Otherwood, that Public Works ordered some signs for us.
My husband home and sent you a picture of it. You wouldn't know that I was there.
So there's either direction on either of those roads. There's a sign with the library symbol and an arrow pointing, so out-of-town guests are coming, or somebody's trying to find the library for the first time, hopefully to make it a little bit easier for them. They also added a sign in our parking lot showing where to find the book return, because some folks had suggested that we add a sign about that to make it a little bit more evident that we had that. So Public Works did a great job. I sent them a little picture saying this is what I want, and they made it happen only better, and went out of their way to install those for us. They've done a great job with helping with some of the more community-based signage for us, and it's been really helpful, along with that crosswalk that we've discussed before. We had that makerspace, the acoustic paneling in the ceiling that we had talked about previously finally got installed, and it's made a significant difference for the folks using that space for programming. We may still look at doing some acoustical paneling for the walls just to make it even better, but it's really been a drastic difference, so that was worthwhile and will make a good improvement for all the uses we have of that space. We are working on kind of trying to do a big sweep of any warranty items that are still outstanding. So we had a walk of the property with Bruce Company to identify, they counted all the plants to see if any were dead or didn't make it, looked at the grass and, trying to identify any issues that they need to address with the landscaping. We did a similar effort today where we walked through the building with the contractor, the architect, and the owner's rep, and made a list of very minor building things that can still be addressed while the building is under warranty. So hopefully those will all be resolved soon.
Anything egregious?
No, we've been trying to provide things, as they come up, but we kind of went through, looking for all the cracks in the ceiling, testing door keys that maybe we haven't needed to use, trying to find squeaks and any little
Sure.
thing that we could possibly have addressed under warranty just to make sure it's taken care of.
Okay.
So it was very helpful to do. Also, I think since last meeting, we also worked with Energy Tax Savers to submit our Inflation Reduction Act filing for the energy credits that we've been discussing for a little while. So that'll be a significant refund to the village, and I'll let you know what that amount is once we actually receive it. Locally, there's a number of other entities, including Dane County and McFarland, that have filed, and so far nobody's received their payments quite yet. It sounds like some entities have started to receive their funding, and so right now when we filed, the estimate was 45 days. We're not sure if that's business days or calendar days, but that would mean we would get our payment in December if that estimate was true at the time of the filing. So that would be good for us. There's something else I just want to bring to your attention in case it becomes a challenging situation later. We had to order BadgerNet for our library. It's a state-provided service that provides internet to libraries and communities. And we had to order that about a year in advance of our move, which we did with our library system's help. And they were supposed to have it installed by November 1st of last year. We kind of have been struggling to get that moving forward, and they finally scheduled the cutover last Monday. And unfortunately, it didn't go very well. We had a number of outages during the day where the internet was so slow we couldn't really function. So we had a planned outage for the cutover, which took a couple hours because it didn't go very smoothly. And then once it was cut over, the internet was so slow that we couldn't use it to serve patrons, and then we were out pretty much the rest of the night. Tuesday was the election, so luckily our network administrator was willing to get up at 6 in the morning, and when he found out we had no internet, he drove here immediately to switch us back to TDS where we had been on before. And TDS has been amazing. We've had 0 outages that were their fault in the time we've been here. I asked a little bit more to say, well, my understanding is that we're required to be on BadgerNet or Muffin, and so I asked, well, where does it say that, and what's the actual rule?
Yeah.
And I didn't get a clear response to that. And so our library system understands the challenges we face. There's been a number of challenges, and then also how important it is to have good service. So they're going to work with us to explore whether the best way to move forward. And then also, when we do have BadgerNet, they're going to see if there's a way to have a backup plan would automatically switch from BadgerNet to the backup system should there be an outage, to make sure that we're not in that position again. And so I just want you to know, since it hasn't gone smoothly, I don't want there to be any surprises later, but it's just something that has been a challenge for us so far. And I just want to clearly recognize our network administrator who did go outside of his regular work schedule, did drive out here 2 days in a row to make sure that we had 1,600 people here for the election day. And had we not had internet that day, it would have been a really rough day, and it would have looked really bad to the community. And so he really went above and beyond his job description to make sure that was a successful day for our community. So just wanted to recognize him. We are also still waiting for LFI, did their initial shelving install last November, and there's still a few pieces that we have not yet received, and they were supposed to be arriving early to mid-November. My last 3 emails and phone call have not been responded to, so we are struggling to get those last few items wrapped up, and it's really very few items, so it's kind of disappointing it's taken so long, but I'm hopeful that they'll get back to me soon and that we'll be able to get those things wrapped up. As I said, we did have the election here last week, and the village and their election team did an incredible job. We had over 1,600 visitors. Many of them were just visiting the library, but many were here for both activities, and many people were here just for the election. So it was a very busy day. Starting at 5:30, Candy was here setting up. So you may have also noticed the walking and biking path that goes around the library and the parks has recently been replaced. The village did a great job of putting that in, and so many community members have been able to enjoy that walking and biking path. The other thing I want to make sure you know we're working on is the village is working on their impact fees to make sure they're current, and so with us moving to a new facility, they're able to reanalyze what they're charging for the library impact fee. It doesn't impact our board directly because the impact fees go to the debt service per the memorandum of understanding, but it is something we are working in partnership with the village to make sure they're able to choose what the right amount is for that fee. And it's a fee basically paid by new developers for residential housing. When they build a new home, there's a fee that goes to support the impact that additional housing has on the cost of library services in terms of capital expenditures. The deadline for the community survey for the referendum was actually on Monday, the 11th, so that is all complete now. The village will be working on, or the village's consultant will be working on compiling results, so you can expect to see those results out to the community probably in the coming month or so, and I'll share when that's available if it falls outside of a meeting date. Including in your packet also the library events. This is a little bit more succinct, a little more marketing, easier to read kind of summary that you'll see, so I'm going to switch to that moving forward, but always, as always, if you have any questions, please let me know. Our team does an incredible job of having events that are important and meaningful to our community members, and often OCA, last night we had a panel that we didn't have a lot of people attend in person, but we have that great watching online afterwards too. There's a lot of times that people can't make it because of some other conflict that can enjoy the program afterwards, which we appreciate their presence at. And again, we have lots going on for all ages. Are there any questions?
Hearing none, we can move on to 6C, feature in the library journals, the Year in Architecture 2024 article.
Yeah, this is kind of fun. I'll pass this around. It's a little prettier in the actual issue, but we are also fortunate enough to be recognized in the Library Journal. So recently we were featured in American Libraries magazine, and this time is Library Journal, and those are basically the 2 library journals of note that you would want to be included in. And our space was selected in the playful category for the circle windows and to have a fun atmosphere for kids. And obviously we want to be a great atmosphere for our entire community, but it was just nice to see that recognition. And I think we're way at the end of this packet, but I did include the whole article so you could see what other spaces are featured. And ours didn't come out very well in this.
It's funny that they used the white side for playfulness.
Yeah.
That was the front that made me laugh.
The photos were taken by the architect, and they didn't do the graphic design on the other side, which is why I think they took the photo of the direction they did.
It just made me laugh.
Yeah, so I can't find that particular one right now, but I'll find it before the meeting's over, and if anybody wants to actually look at it in person, it might be more enjoyable. It's on page 20, it looks like. For statistics, it continues to be very busy. September was a little bit slower of a month, but it's picked right back up. I think the last 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, we had over 1,000 visitors again, so it's just continuing to be very busy with a lot of people. using the library. Meeting room usage is the highest it's been so far this year, and their study room reservations also have been the most that we've had so far this year in a single month. So we expect those to continue to grow and be very popular. I'm trying to see what else.
It's amazing to see how these numbers just keep going up. and up.
It is.
So thanks to everybody who's been able to
I'm on it.
handle our community numbers going up and up and up.
And we are really hoping to be able to look at adding some additional staffing in the future to help with the additional checkouts and additional visits that we have. That'd be super helpful.
Okay, any village board announcements that we're aware of currently? I don't think so. We can move on to school district announcements.
I'd say there's nothing, nothing of great significance, other than it is, we're in between athletic seasons, and that means that it's also concert season. So it's so much fun. There's a concert or two happening every week. And, you know, that's something that's really important to our community and to our kids. And so that's one of the very uplifting things going on at the moment.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Moving on to 7A, the change date of our regular January meeting to Wednesday, January 15th of 2025.
And this is in part because of how the calendar falls with the first of the month being the holiday date, and then with the library being closed and the December meeting date, there's not a lot of time to prepare. January historically has been a very light agenda, and then also doing the meeting a little later in the month will give us the opportunity to get as many of those 2024 bills approved at one time, which makes things a little bit better for counting. We had 6 of our 7 board members said they would be able to attend if we rescheduled to that date. So that would be my recommendation, but certainly if you as a board prefer to keep the current date, that would be fine too.
Okay, so is there a motion to reschedule our regular January 25 library board meeting to Wednesday, January 15th?
So moved.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Laura. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we will be meeting on January 15th.
Mark your calendar.
Moving on to renewal of service agreement for sprinkler inspection and maintenance.
So the proposed sprinkler inspection agreement is in your packet. You had approved the agreement last year. This is basically the same agreement. We're asking to extend it for 1 more year. This is for the quarterly and annual sprinkler inspections. They come 4 times a year, and that's code required, so we have to do that. This firm provided the services for us in 2024, have been great to work with, even though they're not the original installer. They are familiar with their system and have been very diligent about taking care of things promptly. So I would recommend that we approve the agreement for renewal of the annual sprinkler inspection and testing services with Ahern.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Oh, Laura's on a second.
She's on the roll.
Any discussion or questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Moving on to consideration for the 2025 HVAC preventative maintenance agreement.
So similar to the sprinkler system, we have an agreement for the preventative maintenance for our HVAC that includes things like filter changes. The scope of the agreement is listed here, and that scope was determined in part by our commissioning agent, and then also the HVAC manuals and the recommended maintenance schedules that they provided in those agreements. So there's a number of things they check, with the spring and the fall being more thorough, and the summer just being more quick filter changes and things like that. So we worked with this company last year. They are local. They are not the original installer, but have become really familiar through their preventative maintenance agreement this year. Last year we did ask for pricing from multiple firms, and they were lower than the installing company significantly, and so that's why part of the reason why we chose to go with them last year. So I'd recommend we continue and renew for 1 more year.
But in addition to being more cost effective, they're very competent.
They're very competent. For each visit, they issue a series of reports that show all the equipment, any issues that come up for each unit. So it's a very clear what needs to happen or what was done. So it's very thorough.
Yeah. Part of that, you know, is the trust part of it is just the confidence that we know we have a well-maintained building.
Is there a motion to approve the 2025 HVAC preventative maintenance agreement with 1901?
May I make that motion?
Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
I was like, not even jumping, Laura.
Wow.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. Moving on to Energy Tax Savers Service Agreement for Inflation Reduction Act Energy Credit Filing.
So the agreement and the filing that we just completed this year was for the geothermal system. And because that system went live in December of 2023, we could file this year in 2024, which was the first year that they allowed filing for this. However, the solar panels did not go live as a system until April of this year, and so we were not able to include them in the filing. We'll able to file for them in 2025. So that requires a separate filing in addition. So we contracted with Energy Tax Savers to do the first filing. They do a number of services that are valuable in terms of they determine what costs are eligible, which is something we're not very familiar with. They compile expenses, have all the documentation, and most importantly, if you get audited, they will address the audit and make sure that that situation is taken care of properly. So I would recommend that we engage with an agreement with them to do the same filing for the solar panels for next year. If we or a different village department were to add solar panels in the future, I expect that filing to be a little bit more simple, so we can probably use that as an example for future opportunities. But just given how busy we are and the complexity of this and the likelihood that this may be a large amount of money between the two filings, I think the chances of being audited are much higher, and we would want professional expertise to make sure that we're doing that exactly the way that we should on behalf of the village.
Is there a motion to approve the proposal from Energy Tax Savers for the 2025 solar panel filing?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Laura. Second?
Second.
Thanks, Laura. Any discussion or questions?
So, and it says that the refunds are up to 30% of the eligible cost. Is the whole cost eligible, and are we like for sure gonna get the 30%, or is that?
So so with the geothermal system, for sure, the eligibility cost is to be very clear about what's eligible and what's not. So their heat pumps were eligible, but the fin tubes under the windows were not eligible because they had nothing to do with the geothermal system, and that's expertise that we didn't really have. With the solar panels, it's a little more straightforward because it's pretty much the solar panels. There's not a lot of other work done on the building for it, so most likely all the solar panel costs will be eligible. The base incentive is 30%. However, if you use any part of the revenue that you pay for it is tax-free bonds like village borrowing or village funding, then you take a 15% cut off of that. And so our actual eligibility for the other geothermal system was around 25%, if I remember correctly. And so 30% is the max, but there's a number of things that require you to decrease what that incentive is.
But realistically, the fees that we are paying are gonna fall well underneath that.
Absolutely.
Just
Yep.
clarifying that, like, we asked for this, we're headed into this and gonna spend, what, $4,000 total?
Yes.
That's a completely reasonable amount given what we expect to return.
Yeah, I would expect the refund on the solar panels to be between $35,000 and $45,000.
Okay. That makes sense.
The return on investment isn't as good with solar panels as it was on the geothermal, but the fee on the geothermal was minuscule compared to the expected refund. It'll make more sense when we get the refund, but I don't want to say the amount until we actually know.
That's totally fair.
That tells us what we can have.
Understandable. No, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you, everybody. Update on possible 2025 referendum for village operational.
So just wanted to take this chance to update you on the schedule. So I've re-included some information you've already seen about where the village has their referendum information on their website, the options assessment report they have that kind of explains perceived need for a referendum and why they're asking community feedback. The YouTube video that OCA Media provided of a previous village board that shows the board talking in more depth about the need for a referendum and why it's being considered. And then just sharing information about that community survey that just closed. They do expect to have results to share with the community in December. So that'll be helpful for them to understand the community's feedback on it and for them to consider how they would wish to proceed forward. So I guess there's no new information. I just want to make sure that you have the latest information, and if community members say something to you, that you're aware of what's going on and where to find those resources, so that you're in the loop.
Appreciate that, that's great. Moving on to the 2025 library budget request update.
I just want to share that our budget request is moving forward in the village budget as we expected it to last month. So there's been no changes. There was some discussion at the village board meeting last week, Monday, about a DOR guidance that was changed, and so there was some concern that they weren't sure how that was going to shape up and how that would affect their budget. The DOR did grant them a one-time exception so that because of the time frame in which they learned of changed guidance from the DOR for this year, and so that means that our budget will not be affected this year, but it is a one-time exemption, so they will have to likely potentially address that discrepancy next year unless there's more clear or change in guidance moving forward on how that's interpreted. So good news is our budget's moving forward as we had hoped.
May I?
Yes, John.
I'm sorry,
Mm-hmm.
the DOR,
Department of Revenue
right, okay.
has, there's basically restrictions on how much a village can increase their budget. There's an exemption for fire and EMS services that the village was using. And they had based their budget based on guidance they had given on how that exemption worked that they received early in the summer. And then later on in October, they were given a different interpretation of that same exemption, which changed what number and what dollar amount they would be allowed to.
And this is a
request.
state of Wisconsin agency,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Regulatory, got it.
Yep. And so it's, the exemption's in place for 10 years, so the DOR will be reviewing, how they handle that in the future, I would imagine.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The 2025 library employee wage schedule and staff wages.
So as many of you are familiar, the village did a comprehensive salary compensation study in 2022 and has been since working to make sure employees are compensated and wage increases are provided in accordance with that schedule. And that's been very impactful for library employees. We've been able to retain and just better appreciate our qualified employees that we do have, so that's been very good for us. While the study was done on a village-wide level, as a library board you have some autonomy where you, as a library board, get to set the salary for library employees and our positions. So while I feel it is in the best interest of us to work in partnership with the village salary schedule, it is important to know that you do have the authority to choose what to do. So what the village is doing for other departments is that suggesting that each employee, and what's in the budget is that each employee move forward one step on the schedule, which is approximately a 2.5% increase. And so I would recommend that you approve wages in that same direction, where you would approve the salary schedule as included, and that our staff wages would advance one step on the schedule for each employee, just like the village is proposing village-wide.
So is there a motion to approve the 2025 employee wage schedule for the library positions and advancing one step on the schedule?
I will make that motion.
Thank you, Coral. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Laura. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks, everyone. Consideration for a naming opportunity and donor agreement.
So as you may remember, we recently closed our capital campaign, but as part of that discussion, we said that we would consider potential naming opportunities should they arise. So we did get approached by a family donor who was very pleased. They visited the library. They live out of town, but have connections to Oregon, and were very pleased with the building and very excited to consider being a naming opportunity. They were very interested in one of the window seating areas, so we had 3 window seating areas that we had back when we had the Main Street site. And so then we moved over here, we maintained those the three spots, so they're kind of the window areas where they're seating. And we had 3 available, but only 1 was selected by a donor during the capital campaign. So there were 2 remaining spaces that we had designated but didn't get selected. Allowing this naming opportunity would be fitting in with what we had before. It'd be consistent. It wouldn't be offering anything different than what all our previous donors had had the opportunity to select. But because the capital campaign is closed, our board approval is required to move forward with this opportunity. Should that be something you'd like to move forward with, there is a agreement in here for the family with the terms, the standard agreement that we had for other donors, saying the amount they'll contribute, and then the donor period that we would also want to approve together with the naming opportunity should that move forward. What questions do you have?
Does the funds go to the building or does it go to something?
So this was an important thing when we were approached by the donor. I wanted to be straightforward that our building obligations for the building costs had already been met. And so we have we don't really have additional needs for additional funds to be restricted to the building itself because those costs have already been paid. And so I think under 6 additional terms, I did note that our financial obligations for the building had been met before this agreement started. And for that reason, that you as a board would have the authority to use the funds however you see fit to best serve the library, if you feel that that covers it. But what we don't want to do is limit funds to capital purposes and not have a capital need and then have them be unused and not be able to honor the donor's wishes or our needs.
Did the donor specify any specific areas that they wanted to help support?
Not for this. They may be, for this I think it's important that it be up to the library board to do. They did express interest in potential additional donations for collection, in which they do have preferred area, but that's a side of this agreement. That's a separate thing and wouldn't require approval to support the collection.
Is there a motion to approve this naming opportunity for the adult seating area to the south?
I would like to make that motion.
And approve the enclosed agreement?
Yes.
Thank you, John. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Laura. Any other questions or comments?
The Seaborgs are amazing human beings. Incredible humans.
I just wanted to thank them.
Their family is top notch.
Yeah, I want to thank them too for their generous donation and support of the library and the collection.
Yes, absolutely.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thanks everybody, and thanks to the Seaboard family. We are nearing the end of our agenda today. Our next meeting will be on December 11th, 2024, here at the library at 5:15 p.m. Is there a request, or are there any requests for future agenda items?
I missed one thing, will you forgive me? The Public Arts Committee, the Luminous sculpture is in the reading room, so check it out on your way out. And if you'd like to sign the thank you note to the artist on your way out, I'd love for you to do that.
Yes, thank you. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Second. Laura. All right. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.